Social anxiety is the silent shackle that binds millions in a state of perpetual self-consciousness. It's the voice that whispers devastating predictions before you enter a room, the sensation of being scrutinized with every word you speak, and the exhaustion that follows interactions that others seem to navigate with effortless ease. Yet what if this anxiety isn't simply a personal failing, but rather the natural response of an intelligent mind confronted with the absurdity of social performance? As Arthur Schopenhauer once observed, intelligence and social life are in conflict. The philosopher of pessimism recognized that increased awareness often correlates with increased social discomfort, not because there's something wrong with you, but because you're perceptive enough to see through the veneer of social norms that others accept without question. Our community of seekers are growing each day, and a huge percentage of them have social anxiety. Many requested us to make a video on this topic. But this video isn't about teaching you to care more effectively about social rules. It's about liberating you from caring altogether, not in a nihilistic rejection of human connection, but through a strategic reclamation of your personal power that paradoxically makes authentic connection more possible than ever before. Throughout history, great thinkers have grappled with the tension between authentic existence and social conformity. Their insights provide the foundation for understanding why social anxiety persists and how we might transcend it. Schopenhauer understood that heightened intelligence comes with a price. Superior intelligence is destined for solitude, he noted, not as punishment but as an inevitable consequence of seeing what others don't or won't. When you detect the performative nature of social interaction, the insincerity of pleasantries, and the desperation underlying approval-seeking behaviors, how can you participate with the same unquestioning enthusiasm as others? The socially anxious person isn't deficient in social skills, but often hyper-aware of social dynamics. They notice inconsistencies, detect subtle judgments, and anticipate reactions before they occur. This heightened perception creates a painful self-consciousness that makes spontaneous interaction nearly impossible. Friedrich Nietzsche extended this thinking by challenging the very foundation of social conformity. His concept of the herd mentality described how societies enforce mediocrity by punishing those who deviate from accepted norms. The truly exceptional individual must be willing to stand apart, to become what he called the Übermensch or beyond man, someone who creates their own values rather than accepting those imposed externally. For Nietzsche, social anxiety wasn't a weakness, but potentially the growing pain of an individual in the process of transcending conventional limitations. His famous aphorism, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe," speaks directly to the experience of the socially anxious person who senses the pressure to conform but resists complete surrender. While often mischaracterized as advocating ruthlessness, Niccolò Machiavelli was primarily concerned with understanding how power operates in social systems. His insights in The Prince offer practical wisdom for those struggling with social anxiety. Machiavelli understood that perception is everything, and that it's not just about what you are, but about what others believe you to be. This distinction liberates us from the exhausting pursuit of universal approval. Instead of trying to make everyone like you, an impossible task, Machiavelli suggests cultivating a strategic social presence that commands respect. The socially anxious person often reveals too much too quickly, explains too thoroughly, and apologizes too frequently. Machiavelli would advise the opposite: strategic opacity, calculated silence, and an unwillingness to justify yourself to those who haven't earned that privilege. Our contemporary environment compounds the philosophical tensions already mentioned. Several modern factors make social anxiety particularly acute in today's world. Social media has transformed social interaction into a perpetual performance. The constant documentation and broadcasting of experiences creates unprecedented pressure to curate not just our online presence, but our real lives as well. The boundary between authentic experience and performative display has blurred to the point of meaninglessness. As one script notes, digital omnipresence, you're always available, always responding, always active, always online. People respect what is hard to reach, what is not always available, what does not respond instantly. Genuine conversation has been largely replaced by what philosopher Harry Frankfurt calls bullshit, speech unconcerned with truth or falsity, intended merely to create a certain impression. Small talk exemplifies this phenomenon. Exchanges of prefabricated phrases lacking any real information or emotional content. For the intelligent, thoughtful person, participating in such empty rituals feels not just boring but actively dishonest. Yet refusing to engage marks you as difficult or antisocial, creating a double bind with no easy resolution. We live in what Aldous Huxley presciently described as a world of perpetual distraction. The constant bombardment of stimuli, notifications, advertisements, entertainment options, fragments attention, and erodes the capacity for sustained focus. This overload doesn't just make concentration difficult, it makes presence nearly impossible. How can you be fully present in social interactions when your attention has been trained to flit constantly from one stimulus to another? This divided awareness creates a dissociative experience that fuels social anxiety. Here we encounter a fascinating paradox. Those who seem most socially successful often care least about social approval. This isn't just anecdotal observation. It's supported by psychological research on status dynamics and attraction. Social anxiety creates a hyperreactive state where every perceived slight or awkward moment triggers an internal cascade of self-criticism. The alpha individual, by contrast, maintains emotional equilibrium regardless of external circumstances. As Machiavelli noted, emotional control as a tool of power separates those who lead from those who follow. The one who loses control, the one who reacts impulsively, the one who is carried away by anger or anxiety becomes predictable, manipulable, and weak. This non-reactivity isn't about suppressing emotions, but about developing the capacity to experience them without being controlled by them. When you no longer fear your own emotional responses, social interaction loses its threatening quality. Economic principles apply to social dynamics. What's abundant is devalued. What's scarce is prized. The socially anxious person typically overcompensates by being excessively available, accommodating, and eager to please. This behavior, intended to secure acceptance, actually diminishes perceived value. The art of strategic distance involves calibrating your availability to increase rather than decrease your social capital. When you're always there, when you give without measure, people start taking your presence, your effort, your generosity for granted. This isn't manipulation but recognition of how human psychology actually works. People value what they must earn, not what's freely given without qualification or discrimination. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of not caring is the space it creates for authentic self-expression. When you no longer filter every word and action through the lens of anticipated judgment, something remarkable happens. You become present in a way that most people aren't. This presence creates a magnetic quality that draws others toward you, not despite your indifference to approval, but because of it. In a world where most people are performing rather than being, authenticity stands out like a beacon. As one script observes, the irony of it all is that the less you care about social validation, the more power you have over it. True freedom begins when you no longer worry about what others think of you. Understanding the philosophical and psychological underpinnings of social anxiety is valuable, but how do we translate this knowledge into practical liberation? The following strategies offer concrete pathways toward freedom. The power is not in speaking more. Power is in knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. The socially anxious person often feels compelled to fill silence with nervous chatter, explanations, or apologies. Practice instead the art of contained speech. Before speaking, ask, is this necessary? Does it add value? Would silence be more powerful here? Train yourself to become comfortable with pauses and gaps in conversation rather than rushing to fill them. This doesn't mean becoming uncommunicative, but rather making your words count through selectivity and precision. When you do speak, do so with conviction and without the hedging qualifiers that undermine authority. I just think, kind of, sort of. One script outlines a powerful framework for commanding respect. Predictable punishment. When people cross your boundaries, consequences should follow consistently rather than arbitrarily. This doesn't mean harshness, but clarity and reliability. Fear of regret. It's not about making them fear you. It's about making them fear disappointing you. When your good opinion has value, others will work to maintain it. One window of redemption. Giving people a single, clear opportunity to rectify mistakes balances accountability with compassion. One opportunity to rectify, but clear, limited, non-negotiable. These principles transform interactions from anxiety-producing uncertainties to clear, navigable territories where all parties understand the parameters. Anxiety drives us toward extreme predictability as we try to minimize variables that might trigger discomfort. This predictability, however, makes us easy to manipulate and dismiss. Machiavelli noted that the art of unpredictability generates respect because when people are never sure of what your next move will be, you become dangerous, and when you're dangerous, they respect you. This doesn't mean becoming erratic or unreliable in your core commitments, but rather avoiding the trap of total transparency and excessive accommodation. Keep something in reserve. Maintain a degree of mystery. Don't always show your full hand. Social anxiety often manifests as emotional reactivity, blushing, trembling, voice changes, racing thoughts. These physical responses then trigger mental panic in a self-reinforcing cycle. Breaking this cycle requires developing physiological self-regulation skills. Controlled breathing. Practice diaphragmatic breathing during non-stressful times so it's available when needed. Progressive muscle relaxation. Learn to systematically release physical tension. Cognitive diffusion. Develop the ability to observe anxious thoughts without identifying with them. The goal isn't to eliminate emotion, but to experience it without being controlled by it. As one script notes, true power is not in controlling others, it's in mastering yourself. Social anxiety creates an urgency to resolve uncomfortable situations immediately. This urgency leads to premature speech, unnecessary explanations, and hasty commitments that we later regret. The power of strategic patience means developing comfort with waiting, observing, and calculating before acting. True power does not belong to those who act impulsively, but to those who know how to wait for the perfect moment to move. This patience isn't passive. It's a highly active state of readiness and attention. By resisting the impulse for immediate resolution, you claim the power to act at the optimal moment rather than the first possible one. While practical techniques provide immediate relief, lasting freedom from social anxiety requires a more fundamental shift in orientation, from external validation to internal authority. This shift has several dimensions. Rather than struggling endlessly against social anxiety, consider embracing Schopenhauer's insight that solitude is the fate of all great minds. This doesn't mean rejecting all social contact, but recognizing that meaningful connection with everyone is neither possible nor desirable. Quality over quantity becomes the guiding principle. As one script observes, when you walk your own path, not caring about others' approval, you attract those who truly matter. People who think, who question, who don't need to fill every second of their lives with unnecessary noise. Social anxiety often stems from an inflated sense of social stakes, as if every interaction might determine your entire future or reveal some fundamental inadequacy. This catastrophizing creates unbearable pressure. The truth is more liberating. Most social interactions have virtually no lasting consequence. The great arc of your life will be determined by consistent choices and actions over time, not by whether you made a witty comment at a dinner party or fumbled an introduction. Ultimately, freedom from social anxiety requires rebuilding your identity around internally generated values rather than external validation. This process involves identifying your non-negotiable principles, clarifying what success means to you personally, developing comfort with being misunderstood or judged, finding meaning in creation rather than approval. As Nietzsche proclaimed, the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. To be your own man is hard business. If you try it, you will be lonely often and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. Social anxiety isn't simply a personal failing. It's often the product of intelligence confronting absurdity, of depth encountering shallowness, of authenticity facing performance. The path beyond this anxiety isn't found in more skillful social performance, but in transcending the need to perform altogether. The paradox at the heart of this transformation is both beautiful and profound. When you stop desperately seeking connection through approval, you become capable of genuine connection through authenticity. When you cease trying to be what others want, you become someone others genuinely want to know. As one script eloquently states, true respect is not demanded. It's built, it's lived, it's imposed with presence, with contained power, with brutal coherence. The socially anxious person, perhaps more than anyone, has the potential to develop this authentic presence, not despite their sensitivity, but because of it. The very perceptiveness that makes conventional social interaction painful becomes, when properly channeled, the foundation for a more meaningful way of being with others. In the end, freedom from social anxiety isn't about learning to care more effectively about social rules and judgments. It's about the art of not caring, or more precisely, caring so deeply about what truly matters that the rest falls away into insignificance. Thanks for watching. Are you a seeker? If yes, then subscribe to Seekers TV. For more exclusive content, consider joining our Patreon. Link in the description below.